The galaxy had never been kind to humanity. When the Galactic Council discovered the small blue planet spinning quietly in the outer arm of the Milky Way, they saw nothing but primitives. The humans had barely touched their own moon. They still fought wars over resources. They still killed each other over differences in skin color and belief systems. The Council looked at Earth and saw chaos wrapped in flesh. The year was 2147 when the first alien ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries. They had imagined friendly visitors bringing advanced technology and wisdom. They had imagined themselves joining a grand cosmic family. What they received instead was a cold message delivered by a holographic projection that appeared simultaneously in every major city across the planet. The message was simple. Humanity was being watched. Humanity was being judged. And humanity had failed. The Galactic Council consisted of 12 ancient species. Each one had evolved beyond violence. Each one had transcended the petty struggles that defined younger civilizations. They had created a peaceful union spanning thousands of star systems. They had rules. They had standards. And humanity met none of them. The Council gave Earth a choice. Accept permanent quarantine within their own solar system, or face complete annihilation. There would be no negotiation. There would be no appeal. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too savage to be allowed among the stars. Earth's governments argued for months. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender completely. In the end, there was no real choice at all. The alien technology was thousands of years ahead of anything humanity possessed. Fighting would mean extinction, so humanity accepted the quarantine. They watched as massive satellites were placed around their solar system, forming an invisible barrier that no human ship could cross. The Council called it protection. They said they were protecting the galaxy from humanity's violence. They said one day, perhaps in 1,000 years or 10,000 years, humanity might evolve enough to join civilized society. Until then, they would remain trapped in their little corner of space, forgotten and alone. The barrier went up in 2148. For the next 200 years, humanity existed in isolation. They could see the stars. They could detect alien signals passing through space, but they could not leave. They were prisoners in their own home. But the Council had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that isolation would break humanity. They had assumed that without access to galactic resources and knowledge, humans would stagnate and decay. They did not understand what humanity truly was. Humanity did not break. Humanity adapted. Humanity innovated. Humanity grew stronger. Cut off from the galaxy, humans turned inward. They stopped fighting each other. The old borders between nations dissolved because there was no longer any point in maintaining them. Earth became united for the first time in its history. Every human being understood that they faced a common enemy, a galaxy that had rejected them, and that understanding forged them into something new. The scientists who had been working on weapons started working on solutions. The soldiers who had trained for war started training for survival. The politicians who had fought for power started fighting for progress. In 2 centuries of isolation, humanity achieved what should have taken 10,000 years. They developed new energy sources that made nuclear power look primitive. They created artificial intelligence that could think and create alongside humans rather than against them. They built ships that could bend space itself. They cracked the secrets of biology and extended human lifespans to centuries. They became something the Council had never anticipated. They became something the galaxy had never seen. And in the year 2351, humanity broke through the barrier. The Council had designed the quarantine field to be impenetrable. Their scientists had used the most advanced technology available. But they had designed it to contain the primitive species they had observed 2 centuries earlier. They had not designed it to contain what humanity had become. When the first human ship crossed the barrier, alarms went off across the galaxy. The council convened an emergency session. This was impossible. This was unthinkable. The violent primitives had somehow escaped their cage. They sent a fleet to push humanity back. 50 warships from 5 different species, carrying weapons that could shatter moons. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in 3,000 years. They expected the mission to take hours. The battle lasted exactly 11 minutes. When it was over, 43 Council ships were disabled and drifting in space. The remaining 7 had fled. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. The galaxy watched in shock. The species they had dismissed as savages had just humiliated the combined military power of 5 ancient civilizations. And humanity was not done. Over the next 50 years, humans spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They did not conquer through violence. They conquered through innovation. Human technology was now centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed. Human ships were faster, stronger, and more efficient. Human medicine could cure diseases that had plagued alien worlds for millennia. Human engineers could build structures that defied the known laws of physics. And humanity was willing to share. That was what truly terrified the Council. The species that had been under Council control for thousands of years suddenly had a choice. They could remain loyal to the ancient powers that had ruled them, or they could trade with humanity and receive miracles in return. One by one, they chose humanity. The Council watched helplessly as their influence crumbled. The quarantine they had imposed had been meant to protect the galaxy from human aggression. Instead, it had created a monster of innovation that was now peacefully dismantling their empire. By the year 2420, the Galactic Council was irrelevant. Their member species had either defected to human alliance or retreated to their home systems in shame. The 12 ancient powers that had once ruled the galaxy now controlled nothing but their own dying worlds. And that was when the desperation began. The first ambassadors arrived at human space in 2425. They came from the Velith, one of the founding species of the Council. Their civilization was dying. Their birth rates had been declining for centuries, and without access to human medical technology, they would be extinct within 3 generations. The Velith ambassador knelt before the Human Council. His ancestors had voted to imprison humanity. His ancestors had called humans savages and beasts. Now he was begging those same humans for mercy. The human response surprised the galaxy. There was no revenge. There was no gloating. The humans simply asked what the Velith needed, and then they provided it. Within a decade, Velith birth rates had stabilized. A species that had helped condemn humanity was now alive because of human generosity. The other Council species watched carefully. They had expected punishment. They had expected humanity to make them suffer for the centuries of isolation. When that punishment never came, they grew confused. And then they grew hopeful. And then they grew hopeful. One by one, the ancient powers sent their own ambassadors. The Korthan, whose homeworld was dying from environmental collapse. The Marshak, whose genetic diversity had become so limited that disease was ravaging their population. The Torval, whose ancient technologies were failing and could not be repaired. Each one came to humanity with their problems, their apologies, and their desperate need for reconciliation. And humanity helped them all. The galaxy could not understand this behavior. Every other species in history had used power for dominance. Every other species had punished those who had wronged them. But humanity seemed to operate on different principles entirely. A Velith philosopher spent years studying human culture, trying to understand why they behaved as they did. He found his answer in an ancient human concept called forgiveness. It was not a sign of weakness, as the Council had always believed. It was a sign of strength. Only the truly powerful can afford to forgive, because only the truly powerful had nothing to fear from their former enemies. Humanity had become so advanced, so capable, so confident in their own abilities that revenge simply did not interest them. What interested them was building something better. What interested them was proving that the galaxy had been wrong about them all along. The reconciliation was not easy. There were many humans who still remembered the isolation. There were many who had lost parents and grandparents to the depression and despair of those trapped centuries. Some humans argued that the council species should be left to die. Some argued that they deserved everything that was happening to them. But humanity as a whole chose a different path. They chose to show the galaxy what they truly were. Not savages. Not monsters. Not the violent primitives the council had feared. They were builders. They were healers. They were dreamers who refused to let the past define their future. By the year 2500, the old council had been replaced by a new galactic assembly. Humanity sat at its head, not through conquest, but through invitation. The species that had once tried to cage them now looked to them for leadership. The irony was not lost on anyone. The very traits that the council had feared, human aggression, human competitiveness, human ambition, had been channeled into creation rather than destruction. Humanity had taken its darkest impulses and transformed them into light. And those who had cast humanity beyond the borders now came seeking reconciliation, understanding at last that the galaxy's greatest hope had always been the small blue planet they had tried so hard to forget. The universe had learned a simple truth. You should never try to cage a species that turns every obstacle into opportunity. You should never underestimate a people who see walls as challenges rather than limits. And you should certainly never dismiss as primitive a civilization that carries the fire of infinite determination in its collective heart. Humanity had not just survived the exile. They had used it to become something greater than anyone had imagined possible. And now, as the ancient species knelt before them seeking mercy and alliance, humans extended their hands not in domination, but in partnership. This was the true victory, not conquest, not revenge, but the creation of a galaxy where even those who had wronged humanity could find redemption. The stars belonged to everyone now, and it was humanity that had made it so.